Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our course, Beginner Course 1. This course will take you from an absolute beginner to a budding guitarist with a solid foundation. By the end of this course, you'll have all the tools you need to start learning songs. Along with the video lessons, this course includes a premium e-guide which contains detailed charts and diagrams for each lesson, as well as extra bonus tips and tricks. It's a great companion to the video lessons and will really accelerate your learning. To learn how to get your copy of this e-guide, as well as get in-depth guidance to help you practice the material in each lesson and much more, click the link on the screen. Welcome to Lesson 8. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to play an open A minor chord. So now that you know how to play an open E minor chord, I'm going to teach you an open A minor chord. And again, this is a very common beginner chord, just like the E minor chord, but it's not just for beginners. You'll probably play this for as long as you play guitar, just like the E minor chord. It's a very common chord used in tons of songs. And I'm starting with these two chords because they're easier to play, so they're good for your first chords that you're learning, but also they sound really good together. And as I'll show you in the next lesson, you can put them together into a little chord progression and it's going to sound really good and help you work on transitioning chords. But we'll talk about that in the next lesson. So here's the open A minor. I'll play it first just so you can hear it. And this is a little harder to play than the open E minor, and that's because you're fretting 3 notes now instead of 2, and also you have to either block out your 6th string with your thumb, which I'll talk about in a second, or just start your strum on the 5th string. So you're not going to hit and let all the strings ring out like you did with the open E minor. So first I'll show you which notes to fret, and then I'll talk a little more about how to do it. So you're going to fret with your 2nd finger the 4th string in the 2nd fret, then with your 3rd finger the 3rd string in the 2nd fret, and then your 1st finger the 2nd string in the 1st fret. So those are the 3 notes you're fretting. And then the 5th string is open, so you just let that ring out, and the 1st string is open, so you let that ring out. And like I mentioned just a second ago, you're not playing the 6th string. So what is most common is to reach your thumb up and just lightly touch that 6th string so that it mutes it out. That's all you'll hear when you hit the 6th string, if you just lightly touch it with your thumb. Don't push down on it, otherwise you're going to get a note. But just lightly touch it to keep the string from ringing. You'll get that type of sound. And then when you strum through all the strings, it won't matter that you hit the 6th string. See, you couldn't even hear the 6th string. If I left the 6th string open, it'd be really muddy. It's not a bad sound, but it can be pretty muddy, and it's good to learn without the 6th string in first. Now, if your hands aren't big enough for your thumb to reach up and touch, or if that feels really uncomfortable and your thumb needs to be down, that's okay. You're just going to have to try and avoid the 6th string when you're strumming and hit that 5th string first. And like I said, it's alright if you hit that 6th string a little bit. It's just that chord's going to get pretty muddy if you leave it in there too much, and it's better to learn without that 6th string in first. But preferably, if you can reach up and mute that string out with your thumb, that's going to be the easiest for you. Then you don't have to worry about being so precise with your strumming hand. And again, with this chord, you want to be on the tips of your fingers. You want nice arch here in your knuckles. They shouldn't be bent back like that. And you're really going to have to be on the tips of your fingers so that you don't block out any of the other strings. That's going to be pretty tough at first, tougher than the E minor chord since you're fretting 3 notes. So again, if you hear anything like, you need to go through and check each string and see what's causing that. And a lot of times it'll be that one of these fingers is touching one of the other strings. So for example, if my 3rd finger was touching the 2nd string, it would keep it from ringing out, and it would sound like this. So I'd have to arch it more to make sure that that note that I'm fretting actually rings out on the 2nd string. And again, it's alright to touch the neck of your guitar with this part of your hand. Just make sure that you don't block out that 1st string, and this other part of your hand should have space. It shouldn't be up against the neck. Preferably you have a nice gentle arch in your wrist right here instead of totally straight, and your palm's not reaching up here to be flat on the neck. But everyone's hands are different, so you're just going to have to try and see what works best for you, and over time you'll eventually just find what works best for you. Just make sure that you don't develop any bad habits as far as like bending your knuckles back and not being on the tips of your fingers. And another bad habit that I didn't mention with the E minor is you don't want your thumb to be parallel with the neck as far as going this way. It needs to be straight up and down like mine is. Even if it's lower on the neck, that's okay, but it needs to be straight up and down, not bent over like this. That's a bad habit to start developing early on. And again, make sure that any finger that can be is close to the front fret wire in whatever fret you're in. So for example, in the second fret I have my second and third fingers. My third finger is really close to this front fret wire. My second finger is back more in the fret because my third finger is in the way. You don't stack them on top of each other. So this second finger is going to need a little more pressure to get that note to ring out, but still it's not way back in the fret near the back fret wire. It's just more towards the back middle of the fret. And your first finger is probably going to be more towards the middle because it's hard to scoot it up too close to the fret in this position. It'll create a weird shape for your hand. So it's not going to be right up against that front fret wire, but I guess it'll be closer than the middle. And that's the one that you might have to give the most pressure with because you're in the first fret, so it's harder to get that note to stop buzzing. So if I don't put too much pressure, you can hear there's buzzing. So I need to give it enough pressure to take out any of that buzz. But always, again, use the minimum amount of pressure needed to get the notes to ring out clearly. Don't squeeze harder than you have to. And again, take breaks, take lots of breaks as you're learning this chord. You're still new to chord, so it's going to take a lot of time to build the hand strength. It's okay if they're sore in the fingertips, but it shouldn't be any sharp pains in your hand. If there's any sharp pains, take a break, come back once your hand is completely healed. And your hand will probably get tired really quickly. It's all right to take a break, let it rest, start again. Just do it really slowly, and over time you'll build that strength. And as long as you're not building bad habits, you'll be able to play chords all day long with no problem. And again, you can use a capo to help make this chord easier to play at first. Put it on the 3rd or 4th fret. That'll bring the strings down closer, make them easier to fret. And if you're using a capo, you can see I'm in the next 2 frets right after the capo. So right now my capo's in the 3rd fret. That would mean my fingers are in the 4th and 5th fret. So these fingers are fretting just in the next 2 frets. So use a capo to make a lot easier to start out, and then once you feel comfortable with that, you can take the capo off and it'll be a little easier for you. So once you think you have the chord strummed through it, then check each string individually, just let the pick fall through like I talked. If you hear anything like that, you just need to go through, check each string, see what's causing that to happen, or if you hear any buzzing, you need to make sure you're putting enough pressure or that you're not on top of any of the fret wires. And just go through, check over and over until you can get all your fingers in the correct position. Your hand's going to wear out quick, so just take lots of breaks, but eventually it'll become easy to you. Once you're able to do that, then do what we did with the E minor, which is the 4 down strums. Just the exact same way. Once you can do those 4 down strums consistent and have your hand moving constantly and have a pretty consistent sound as far as volume goes, then you can just loop those 4 over and over. And it's best if you can count 1, 2, 3, 4 as you're strumming, just so you keep your place. But don't worry too much about that right now. You'll work on that in other series and it'll become more important down the road. So once you can do it, just loop it over and over so it'd sound like. And as many times as you want, just over and over until you feel pretty comfortable with that. And then in the next lesson, we're going to take it a step further, which I'll show you. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like detailed guidance to help you practice material in this lesson, as well as grab your copy of the Premium e-guide, which includes detailed charts and diagrams for each lesson, as well as extra bonus tips and tricks, you can click the link on the screen.